So Materialists was written and directed by Celine Song and it stars Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. And it's about this matchmaker named Lucy, played by Dakota Johnson, who doesn't really have a romantic life herself. She winds up meeting a couple people in her life, including a man played by Pedro Pascal, also her ex-boyfriend played by Chris Evans, as she tries to navigate the rules of her life and tries to find love in a weird way. So this was a movie that I heard about for a while, and I was kind of excited for because Past Lives was a movie that initially I wasn't a big fan of, but it definitely grew on me almost immediately after my screening. And I thought, this is actually a really good movie, and I actually do respect it a lot more. So I'd be curious to see what Celine Song would do next. And it kind of surprised me that she would do a movie like this because it was marketed as like this romantic comedy, and that it was going to be kind of different from her previous movie and such. So I still wanted to give it a chance, and for the most part, I really enjoyed it. But I will say, if you're going in expecting a romantic comedy along the lines of something more recent, like, say, Anyone But You or The Lost City, not here at all. Not here at all. This is honestly more of a drama than it is a comedy. But I still think it works as a romantic drama in a way. So let's start off with the things I do like in this movie. First off, I do think the actors are really good. Dakota Johnson, honestly, this may be the best I've seen Dakota Johnson in. I thought she was really good. I believed her character. I thought she was very interesting, and I kind of thought her path was very interesting. Chris Evans, a lot of people probably would give him a lot of crap for doing a movie like this because, he's obviously been with Marvel for so many years and now he's trying to move away from that. I thought he was really good in this movie. I thought there was like a speech towards the end of the movie that I thought was actually fantastic, and it kind of made me believe his character a lot more. Pedro Pascal is also pretty good, but I think of the three leads, he's probably the weakest. But I still thought his character was very well done. Zoe Winters also appears as a client of Dakota Johnson, who I thought was really good, especially in the second half, which I'll kind of talk about a bit. And also, what I like about this movie too, the screenplay is actually really good. The dialogue is pretty good. There are some unique twists and turns here and there. There are some very interesting surprises with how they tell the story, but also some surprises that happen later on in the movie that kind of catch me off guard and kind of go back into some of the themes later about what this movie's trying to say. As far as like how the romantic love triangle plays out, actually does play out a little bit more realistically than you expect to. And also, I kind of like with this movie that it kind of changes aspects of the love triangle. Normally, when I see a love triangle in a movie or TV show, I often hate it because it's like the lead character, they have to make a choice. Stay with the person they're currently with, who they're not really in love with, or potentially go off to this new person. As much as I love a show like The Office, it's clear Pam should have been with Jim all this time. But at least with this movie, it kind of changes things a lot, whereas like the person who is not really in the relationship, he's actually has to learn and grow and such. I actually thought that was actually really good. And again, Chris Evans sells that very well. And also, there's aspects of this movie that I really do like about how, at least Dakota Johnson, she kind of grows tired of this job, and she kind of feels, she starts growing like resentment towards a lot of these people, and she's like not even really seeing them as people. She's just seeing them as like, all these materialists and such, and like, you kind of realize she's also very materialistic, and I do think that is a movie I think that's a movie that's actually very well done. And eventually, as she kind of like goes along in this movie, she kind of at least learns it's like, these are not really just clients, they're actually just people who have emotions, who go through a lot, just like her. I do think that is very interesting. And also, I really do like the grounded approach to this movie as opposed to something that's more high octane or clearly unbelievable. Everything in this movie, for the most part, feels believable. Even stuff that's like kind of strange, like, like that's kind of interesting. It does kind of play back later in the movie, and it is subtly done. But at the same time, like, at least it still kind of works for the most part, and it kind of plays into what this movie's trying to talk about. But let's talk about my issues with this movie. First off, the movie's not very funny. Even though it's like kind of marketed as a romantic comedy, this movie's not even that funny. There's maybe like one or two lines here or there that kind of got a chuckle, but it's not really so ha funny. The Phoenician scheme, which I thought was pretty funny for at least the first third, was funnier than this. And also, there are definitely some cliches here and there that you kind of would have to expect from a romance movie in some way. And some of them are okay, I'm okay with, in the sense that like they kind of still work for the story overall, but other times they kind of just fall flat. It's like, okay, you're just kind of doing what you would normally do in a romance movie, and it's there. It had to happen, I guess. But you could have cleaned that up a little bit more and kind of made it more grounded like you were doing for the rest of the movie, but I digress. So, Materialist is a movie that I would definitely recommend. I don't think it's as good as Past Lives, but I do think it's at least interesting enough to kind of go, this is a nice, solid sophomore feature from Celine Song. So, with the movie, So with Materialists, the acting I thought was pretty good, particularly from Dakota Johnson and Chris Evans. Pedro Pascal and Zoe Winters are also pretty good, but they're not as good as Johnson or Evans. There are nice surprises along the way. There are some interesting ways the love triangle is handled. I do like the idea of I do like the message that it tries to have, where it's like it views people as people, and how the whole materialism aspect actually works in the movie. I do like the screenplay. I do like the grounded approach to the movie. And also, I do agree that there are some cliches and it's not very funny. And also, about halfway through, there is a reveal about this movie that kind of again plays into what the movie's about that can catch people off guard. And at first, I was like, okay, that's kind of surprising. Like, why would you go into that direction? And I understand why they went to that direction, but it may be off-putting for some people. But I would still definitely recommend this movie overall. I'll give Materialist 3 out of 4 stars. See it. So, what was the last romance movie that you really enjoyed? Or last romance in a movie? It doesn't have to be a romantic comedy or romantic drama like this. Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat, and stay safe.